The transport ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel and pressed her face against the window. She had never seen anything like it. The military academy floated in space like a massive silver wheel, turning slowly against the backdrop of stars. Lights blinked across its surface, and small ships moved around it like insects. "First time seeing Sanctuary 7, asked from the seat beside her. He was the only other human on the transport. "Yeah," said quietly, "it's huge." "Wait until you see the aliens," said with a nervous laugh. "I've been reading about them. We're going to be the biggest people there." Nodded, she had read the files too. Most of the galaxy's intelligent species came from worlds with light gravity. They were tall and thin or small and delicate. Earth was different. Earth had heavy gravity, dangerous animals, and extreme weather. Humans had evolved to survive all of it. The other species called Earth, they said it like it was a bad thing. The transport docked with the station and grabbed her bag. Her hands were sweating. She had trained for 2 years to get accepted into the Galactic Coalition Military Academy. Only 10 humans had been accepted this year. It was a huge honor. But she was terrified. The airlock opened and stepped into the station. The first thing she noticed was how cold it was. The second thing was the aliens. They were everywhere. Tall, thin creatures with long arms and pale skin walked past her. Small, floating beings that looked like jellyfish drifted through the air. Beings made of what looked like living crystal stood in groups, their bodies reflecting the lights. And they were all staring at her. "Human," one of them whispered. The translator in his ear turned the alien words into Korean. Kept her head down and followed the signs to the cadet processing center. Walked beside her, his jaw tight. She could tell he heard the whispers too. The processing center was crowded with new cadets, joined a line and waited. The alien in front of her was one of the species she had studied. He was nearly 7 feet tall but probably weighed less than she did. His skin was gray and his eyes were huge and dark. He turned and looked down at her. "You are human." "Yes," said. "I am Boren," the said. His voice was soft, almost musical. "Are you certain you wish to be here? The training is very difficult." "I can handle it," said. Boren made a sound that the translator didn't pick up. He turned away without another word. The processing took hours. Received her uniform, her room assignment, and her class schedule. Then she was directed to the orientation hall. The hall was enormous, with seats arranged in curved rows that rose up toward the ceiling. Hundreds of cadets were already seated. Found a spot near the back and sat down. The chair was too small, designed for lighter species. She perched on the edge uncomfortably. Walked onto the stage below. He moved with fluid grace, his long arms held behind his back. The room fell silent. "I am instructor," he said. His voice echoed through the hall. "I will be your primary combat instructor. Welcome to Sanctuary 7. Instructor began explaining the program. It would last 6 months. There would be 3 major examinations. Cadets who failed would be sent home. Those who passed would be assigned to active military duty. "Combat in the Coalition is not like combat on primitive worlds," instructor said. "We do not rely on brute force. We use strategy, precision, and skill. We are civilized warriors." Felt her face grow hot. She knew that comment was aimed at humans. Instructor continued. "The final examination will test everything you learn here. It will test your mind, your body, and your spirit. Most of you will pass. Some of you will not." His huge dark eyes swept across the room and landed on. "Some species are not suited for military service. They may be strong, but strength without discipline is worthless. Often make this mistake." Leaned over and whispered, "He's talking about us." "I know," whispered back. After the orientation, cadets were dismissed to find their quarters. His room was small but clean. She had a bed, a desk, and a storage locker. Her roommate hadn't arrived yet. She sat on the bed and pulled out her communicator. There was a message from her mother back on Earth. "I'm so proud of you," her mother had written. "Show them what humans can do." Closed her eyes, she had always been strong. On Earth she was average. But here, in this place full of fragile aliens, she felt like a giant. The other cadets looked at her like she was dangerous, like she was stupid. She wasn't stupid. She had scored in the top 5% on the entrance exams, but none of that seemed to matter. The aliens had already decided what she was. Over the next week, attended classes. She learned about alien cultures, military history, and combat theory. The academics were challenging but manageable. The other cadets mostly ignored her. Except for Boren, the tall seemed to go out of his way to question her. "Do you understand the concept of measured force?" he asked during a tactics class. "Yes," said. "I wonder," Boren said. "Humans are known for their aggression. Can you truly control it?" Didn't answer. She didn't trust herself to stay calm. The physical training was different. While other cadets struggled with the gravity, felt fine. The station was set to 0.8 g, lighter than Earth. She could move faster and jump higher than she ever could at home. But instructor wasn't impressed. "Strength is not skill," he said when finished a training course 30 seconds faster than anyone else. "Any animal can be strong." Pulled aside after class. "Don't let him get to you." "I'm trying," said. "They think we're going to fail," said. "They think we're too primitive, too violent, too stupid. We need to prove them wrong." How asked. "By passing the exam," said. "No human has ever passed. We're going to be the first." The weeks passed quickly. Trained hard, studied harder, and tried to ignore the whispers. The final exam was announced for the end of the month. It would be 3 stages spread across 3 days. Combat simulation, endurance testing, and tactical scenarios. 200 cadets will take the exam, instructor announced. Approximately 40 will pass. The rest will return home. Looked around the training hall. She saw doubt on every alien face when they looked at her. They didn't believe she would pass. They thought she was too primitive, too crude, too much of a. She was going to prove them all wrong. The night before the exam, couldn't sleep. She lay in her bunk and stared at the ceiling. Her roommate, a small named Lyra, was already asleep. Her crystalline body glowed softly in the darkness. Thought about Earth. She thought about the gravity that made every movement hard work. She thought about the predators that had hunted her ancestors. She thought about the storms and the heat and the cold. Earth had made humans strong, not just physically but mentally. Humans didn't give up. They couldn't afford to. Tomorrow, she would show the galaxy what that meant. She closed her eyes and finally slept. The combat arena was massive. Stood in the waiting area with the other cadets, watching the first matches on the big screens. Her heart was pounding, but her hands were steady. The arena floor was white and smooth. Holographic emitters lined the walls and ceiling. The simulations they created were supposed to be perfect, as real as fighting an actual opponent. On the screen, a cadet fought against a holographic warrior from the species. They had 4 arms and moved with incredible speed. But there was faster. He dodged and struck with precise movements, hitting pressure points that made the hologram flicker and weaken. Within 2 minutes, the match was over. The gallery erupted in polite applause. "Beautiful technique," Boren said from beside. "That is how civilized species fight." Didn't respond. She watched as more cadets took their turns. They used weapons that resonated with their crystalline bodies. They manipulated gravity to throw their opponents around. Each species had their own elegant fighting style. Cadet, a voice called, "You're next." Walked onto the arena floor. The lights were bright and hot. She could feel hundreds of eyes watching her from the gallery above. She saw instructor standing at the front, his arms crossed. "Your opponent is a standard warrior," the announcer said. "Difficulty level, intermediate, begin when ready." Took a breath and nodded. The hologram materialized in front of her. It was 7 feet tall with 4 powerful arms. Its skin was covered in thick armor plating. They were known as fierce warriors, not as refined as they, but strong and aggressive. The hologram attacked immediately. 2 arms swung its head while the other 2 reached for her body. She ducked under the high strike and blocked the grapple. The impact jarred her arms, but she held firm. The pushed her back with raw strength, let herself slide across the smooth floor, then planted her feet and stopped. The hologram came at her again. This time didn't defend, she struck first. Her punch caught in its armored chest. The hologram staggered, followed with another strike, then another. Each hit carried the full force of human strength, muscles built to work in Earth's heavy gravity, bones dense enough to handle the impact. They tried to counter, landing 2 solid hits on shoulder and ribs. She felt the pain spike through her body. It hurt, but she didn't stop. Pain was just information. Earth had taught her that. Grabbed one of the arms and twisted. The hologram tried to break free, but her grip was too strong. She used the leverage to throw the warrior off balance, then struck its exposed side. Once, twice, 3 times. The hologram flickered and collapsed. The match was over. Stood in the center of the arena, breathing hard. For a moment, there was complete silence in the gallery. Then someone started clapping. It wasn't enthusiastic applause. It was confused, uncertain, like they didn't know what they had just watched. Walked off the arena floor, was waiting for her. "That was incredible," he said quietly. "It was messy," said, "not like the others." "No," agreed, "it was better." Second match was against a warrior. There were strange opponents. They floated and could manipulate gravity fields. Most physical attacks barely touched them. But found a solution. When they tried to pin her down with increased gravity, she didn't fight it. She dropped low and moved forward, using her own weight as an advantage. When she got close enough, she disrupted this concentration with a series of fast strikes. The hologram couldn't maintain its gravity field while defending. It fell and won. Her third match was against a master. This was the real test. The holographic moved like water, flowing around her attacks. It struck at pressure points, nerve clusters, joint locks. Every hit was designed to disable rather than damage. Felt her left arm go numb from a nerve strike. Then her right leg weakened from another. That was dismantling her piece by piece. But it wasn't enough. Humans had evolved to take damage, to keep fighting even when injured. Ancestors had hunted animals that could kill them with one strike. They had learned to ignore pain, to push through injury, to win by outlasting their prey. Caught this arm during its next strike. The hologram tried to use a joint lock to escape, but its grip didn't break. She pulled the close and used a grappling technique, something the fragile species couldn't defend against. Her arms wrapped around the hologram's torso and squeezed. The structural integrity dropped rapidly. Its ribs couldn't handle the pressure. The hologram flickered and vanished. Stood alone in the arena again. This time there was no applause, just shocked silence. She looked up at the gallery. Instructor was staring at her with an expression she couldn't read. Left the arena and found a quiet corner. Her body ached. The nerve strikes had done real damage. Her arm was still tingling and her leg felt weak, but she would heal. Humans always did. Over the next hour, she watched the other cadets complete their matches. Passed all 3 of his fights, using a different style than faster and more aggressive. Several other cadets failed and were escorted out, crying or silent with shock. When the first stage ended, 60 cadets had been eliminated and were still in. That evening, returned to her quarters. Her roommate Lyra was already there, her crystalline body dim with exhaustion. "You fight very strangely," Lyra said. "I know," said. "No, I mean," Lyra paused. "I have never seen anyone fight like that. You let yourself get hit. Why?" "Because I can take it," said simply. "That doesn't make sense," Lyra said. "The goal is to not get hit." sat on her bunk. On your world, how dangerous are the animals? We have small creatures that eat plants, Lyra said. Nothing dangerous. On Earth, we have animals that hunt humans. They're faster than us, stronger than us, better at killing. But humans survived anyway. Do you know how? Lyra shook her head. By being tough enough to take damage, by being smart enough to turn it around, by never giving up even when we're hurt. Looked at her hands. They were bruised and swollen. Your people fight to avoid damage. We fight to survive it. Lyra was quiet for a long time. I think I understand why they call Eartha. Yeah, said, I think you do. That night checked the scores. They were posted on the main board for everyone to see. Highest individual combat score, Cadet Human. Most damage absorbed, Cadet Human. Most aggressive fighting style, Cadet Human. She stared at the board. 3 categories and humans topped them all. Boren walked past and saw the scores. He stopped and looked at. For the first time there was no smugness in his expression, just uncertainty. Tomorrow is the endurance trial, he said. I know, said. It is 48 hours long. Many cadets will fail. I won't. Boren studied her for a moment. No, he said slowly, I don't think you will. He walked away, leaving alone with the scoreboard. Tomorrow would be harder. She knew that. The endurance trial was designed to break cadets mentally and physically. It would test everything she had. But as she walked back to her quarters, felt something she hadn't felt since arriving at the academy. Confidence. The galaxy had underestimated humans. They thought we're just brutes, strong but stupid, tough but unskilled. They were wrong, and was going to prove it, one stage at a time. The endurance chamber looked like a massive metal box. No windows, one entrance. Once the cadets went inside, they wouldn't come out for 48 hours. Stood in line with the others, checking her gear. She had basic combat equipment, 3 days of rations, and a canteen of water. That was all. No environmental suit, no extra oxygen, no medical supplies. Most of the alien cadets wore specialized suits. They had thin atmosphere processors attached to their backs. They had temperature regulators built into their crystalline bodies. They floated inside protective bubbles. You're not wearing a suit, Boren asked. He was standing behind her in line. Don't need one, said. The simulation includes toxic atmospheres and extreme temperatures. You'll die without protection. Humans are adaptable, said. We'll be fine. Boren looked doubtful, but he didn't argue. The line moved forward. One by one, cadets entered the chamber. When it was turn, she stepped through the door into darkness. The door sealed behind her with a heavy clang. For a moment, nothing happened. Then lights flickered on, revealing a rocky landscape. The simulation had begun. A voice spoke through hidden speakers. You are on the moon 4, high radiation, low oxygen, temperature -40 degrees, find shelter, defend against hostile fauna, survive. The temperature dropped immediately, felt the cold bite into her skin. She started moving, looking for cover. Within 10 minutes, she found a cave. It wasn't much, but it would block the worst of the cold and radiation. She went inside and assessed her situation. The radiation was a problem. Not immediately dangerous, but over hours it would cause damage. Except knew that humans had better radiation resistance than most species. Earth's sun put out a lot of radiation. Humans had evolved to handle it. She would be fine, probably. The cold was manageable too. His body was already generating heat, burning calories to stay warm. She ate some of her rations and drank water. Then she settled in to wait. Hours passed. The simulation threw challenges at her. Holographic creatures attacked the cave. Strange alien predators with too many legs and sharp teeth. Fought them off with her knife and bare hands. At the 12-hour mark, a voice announced the next scenario. Environment change, aquatic zone. The rocky moon vanished. suddenly was underwater. She held her breath and looked around. The water was murky and cold. She could see other cadets in the distance, some struggling, some swimming with ease. Started swimming. Her lungs burned, but she knew she could hold her breath for a long time. Human diving reflex, another gift from evolution. Her heart rate slowed and her body conserved oxygen. She surfaced after 90 seconds, gasped air, and dove again. The scenario required cadets to navigate an underwater course, fighting off hostile creatures and collecting objectives. Was slower than the aquatic species, but faster than she expected. Her muscles, built for Earth's gravity, gave her powerful strokes. She completed the course and pulled herself onto a floating platform. Around her, several cadets were being pulled out by medical teams. They had failed. Some were unconscious. Others were just exhausted beyond the point of continuing. The simulation didn't give them time to rest. The aquatic zone shifted to a desert, temperature 60 degrees Celsius, blazing sun overhead, no shade. Skin burned under the heat. She wrapped her head in cloth torn from her uniform and kept moving. The simulation required cadets to reach checkpoint markers across the desert while fighting dehydration and heat exhaustion. She drank carefully from her canteen. Too much water too fast would make her sick. She had learned that in training. By hour 24 was exhausted. Her legs ached. Her skin was sunburned and radiation damaged. Her throat was dry despite the water, but she was still moving. She saw other cadets collapsed on the ground, eliminated from the simulation. She saw in the distance, still going. That gave her strength. Hour 30 brought a new scenario. The voice announced it with cold efficiency. Psychological warfare simulation. Face your fears. Complete objectives under extreme stress. The desert vanished, found herself in a dark forest. She recognized it immediately. It looked like the forests of Earth. Something moved in the shadows, something big. The holographic projection took shape. A bear, then a pack of wolves, then a tiger, all of Earth's apex predators circling her in the darkness. His heart raced. These were the animals that had hunted her ancestors. These were the nightmares that every human carried in their DNA. But she also knew they were just holograms, just light and sound. She raised her weapon and started firing. The projections flickered but kept coming. The simulation was designed to test stress response, how well cadets could function while terrified. Pushed through her fear, she completed the objectives, moving through the forest while the predators stalked her. Her hands shook, her breathing was fast, but she didn't stop. When the scenario finally ended, she collapsed to her knees. The voice spoke again. Hour 36, rest period 15 minutes. Lay on the ground and closed her eyes. Every part of her body hurt. Her muscles screamed. Her head pounded. She wanted to quit. But she didn't. Around her, she could hear other cadets crying. Some were talking to themselves, their minds cracking under the pressure. The psychological scenario had broken many of them. The medical monitors were going crazy. Could see the readouts on the walls, stress hormone levels for each cadet. Her own levels were off the charts. Cortisol, adrenaline, everything was maxed out. The medical staff watching from outside were probably panicking. Those hormone levels should mean complete system failure. But was still functional. That was the thing about humans. They could function under stress that would kill other species. Evolution had made them that way. The rest period ended. Hour 36 became hour 40, then 42, then 44. Lost track of the scenarios. There was a zero-gravity combat simulation, a toxic gas scenario, a psychological test where she had to make impossible choices under time pressure. She just kept going. At hour 47, the voice announced the final scenario. Last challenge, hold this position against enemy forces. Duration, 1 hour. Found herself on a battlefield. Holographic enemies appeared on all sides. She had limited ammunition and no support. Around her, she could see other cadets, maybe 20 or 30 still standing. She saw Boren. She saw Lyra, her crystalline body cracked and dimmed but still fighting. The enemies attacked in waves, fired until her ammunition ran out. Then she used her knife. Then she used her hands. The hour stretched on forever. Cadets fell around her, eliminated by the simulation. The medical teams pulled them out one by one. Her vision blurred. Her legs could barely hold her up, but she kept fighting. With 5 minutes left, she was one of 15 cadets still standing. With 2 minutes left, only 10 remained. When the simulation finally ended, collapsed. She woke up in the medical bay. Bright lights, clean white walls, the sound of medical equipment beeping softly. "Don't move," a voice said. It was a medical officer, one of the, "You've been unconscious for 2 hours. Your body is recovering." "Did I pass?" asked. Her voice was rough. "Yes," the medical officer said. "You passed, but I must say I have never seen readings like yours. Your stress levels should have killed you. Your radiation exposure should have caused severe damage. Your dehydration was critical." "But I'm alive," said. "Yes," the medical officer said quietly. "You're alive. I don't understand how, but you are." Closed her eyes and smiled. She understood. The galaxy didn't understand. They didn't understand what it meant to evolve on a planet that was constantly trying to kill you. Earth made humans tough, not just physically but mentally. They could take punishment that would break other species. And they could keep going when logic said they should quit. That was what made them dangerous. Later, when was cleared to leave medical, she checked the results board. Of the 140 cadets who started the endurance trial, only 62 had finished. Longest duration before requiring medical intervention. Cadet human, 48 hours. Highest radiation exposure survived. Cadet human. Highest stress hormone levels while remaining functional. Cadet human. Most scenarios completed. Cadet human. She stood there staring at the board. Behind her, she heard footsteps. "Impressive," instructor said. Turned, the instructor was looking at her with an expression she had never seen before. Respect. "I was wrong about," he said simply. "I thought strength without skill was worthless, but you have shown me something different. You have shown me that survival itself is a skill, and humans are very, very good at it." He walked away, leaving alone with her thoughts. One more test remained. The tactical scenario, 3 days to rest and then the final challenge. Was ready. 3 days of rest felt like a gift from heaven. Slept for most of the first day, her body recovering from the endurance trial. When she woke up, she was sore but functional. Human healing was working its magic. The final test was different from the others. Instead of individual challenges, cadets would work in teams. They would face a massive combat scenario that required tactics, cooperation, and leadership. Instructor explained the rules to the 62 remaining cadets. You will be divided into teams of 6. Each team will have a mixed composition of species. Your objective is to extract a high-value target from an enemy stronghold, then defend the extraction point for 30 minutes. If the target dies, you fail. If your team is eliminated, you fail. If you abandon the objective, you fail. He paused and looked around the room. The enemy AI is adaptive. It learns from your tactics. What works once will not work again. This is a test of your ability to think, to adapt, and to lead. Good luck. Team assignments appeared on the screens. Read her assignment, Team 7. Her teammates were Boren, a named who she didn't know, a named Kiva, a called Mist, and a small amphibious species called. They met in a preparation room before the simulation began. Immediately took charge. He was tall with decorative marks on his skin that indicated high social rank. "I will lead this team," announced. "I have studied military tactics extensively. Follow my orders and we will succeed." Nobody objected. stayed quiet and listened as outlined his plan. It was a good plan, elegant even. They would approach the stronghold from the west, using stealth to avoid detection. Kiva and Mist would disable the security systems. Then the team would infiltrate, locate the target, and extract quickly. Once at the extraction point, they would set up a defensive perimeter using the natural terrain. Questions asked. What if stealth fails? Asked. It won't, said confidently. Stealth techniques are perfect. But if it does, pressed. Then we adapt, said, clearly annoyed. But it won't come to that. The simulation began. Team 7 materialized in a rocky canyon. In the distance, they could see the enemy stronghold, a massive fortress built into the side of a mountain. They moved forward carefully, led them along a narrow path that hugged the canyon wall. They were hidden from view, approaching the fortress from its blind side. Everything went according to plan for the first 5 minutes, then it fell apart. The enemy AI had predicted the western approach. Hidden sensors detected the team. Alarms blared. Enemy forces poured out of the fortress. Abort, shouted, fall back. But there was nowhere to fall back to. The canyon was a trap. Enemy forces were coming from both directions. We're pinned down, Kiva shouted. Her crystalline body was already damaged from enemy fire. Froze, his perfect plan had failed, and he didn't know what to do. Made a decision, I'm going through. What? Stared at her. I'm going straight through the enemy line, said. I'll draw their fire. The rest of you follow when you see an opening. That's suicide, said. No, said, it's strategy. Before anyone could stop her, ran toward the fortress. She didn't try to hide or move carefully. She just charged. The enemy forces saw her immediately. Every weapon turned in her direction. Energy bolts and projectiles filled the air. Felt the impacts. Her armor took most of the damage, but some shots got through. Pain exploded across her body. The simulation registered her injuries, severe trauma, critical damage. But she didn't stop. This was what humans did. This was what we're built for, taking damage, pushing through pain, refusing to quit. She reached the enemy line and crashed into it like a storm. Her weapon fired at point-blank range. Her hands grabbed and threw. She became a whirlwind of violence. The enemy AI was confused. Its calculations said she should be dead. The amount of damage she had taken should have eliminated her from the simulation, but she was still fighting. Now, shouted to her team. Team 7 moved. With the enemy focused on, they had an opening. Boren and Mist went high, using their mobility to attack from above. Kiva and provided supporting fire. Even shook off his shock and joined the fight. Together, they broke through. Led them into the fortress. She was bleeding from multiple wounds. Her armor was shredded. The simulation's damage indicators said she was operating at 30% effectiveness. She felt like she was at 70% at least. They found the target, a holographic civilian in a locked room, disabled the lock while the others defended. Then they grabbed the target and ran for the extraction point. The extraction point was 2 kilometers away, across open ground. Enemy reinforcements were coming from all directions. We need to move fast, said. She picked up the target, a small, frightened hologram, and ran. The others followed. They reached the extraction point with 15 minutes to spare. It was a small hill with some rocks for cover. Not ideal, but defensible. Set up a perimeter, ordered. She was still carrying the target, protecting it with her own body. Started to object, then stopped. He realized that had taken command naturally. The team was following her lead. The enemy attacked in waves. The first wave came from the north, infantry units with light weapons. Team 7 fought them off, but took critical damage and was eliminated from the simulation. The second wave came from the east, armored vehicles with heavy weapons. Mist tried to use gravity manipulation to stop them, but took a direct hit. Eliminated. The third wave was the worst. It came from all directions. Enemy forces surrounded the hill and attacked from every angle. Kiva fell, then Boren. It was Justin left defending the target against impossible odds. "We can't hold them," said. His voice was shaking. "Yes, we can," said. She was down to a combat knife. Her ammunition was gone. Her body was broken. According to the simulation's damage model, she should have been dead 10 times over. But she was still standing. Fought beside her. For a species that valued elegance over force, he was surprisingly fierce. They held the hill together. At 28 minutes, heard something. Weapons fire from beyond the enemy line. She looked up and saw his team charging in as reinforcement. "Hold on," shouted. The two teams fought together. With fresh reinforcements, they pushed back the enemy. The simulation counted down the final seconds. 30 minutes, the scenario ended. Dropped to her knees. The target hologram vanished. The enemy forces vanished. She was left kneeling in a white room, covered in simulated blood and burns. Stood beside her, breathing hard. "That was," he paused. "I have never seen anything like that." "Like what?" asked. "You should have died," said. "The damage you took was catastrophic, but you kept fighting. How?" "I'm human," said simply. "We don't quit." Medical teams arrived and checked both of them. Readings were alarming, damage that would have killed any other species 3 times over, but she was conscious and talking. The medical officer just shook his head in disbelief. Later, joined the other cadets to watch the final results. Of the 62 cadets who started the tactical scenario, 43 had passed, and were both among them. The results board showed the statistics. Most damage absorbed while remaining combat effective, Cadet Human. Most enemy units neutralized, Cadet Human. Most successful tactical improvisation, Cadet Human. Highest pain tolerance, Cadet Human. Best team coordination, Team 7 and Team 9 mixed. Boren approached in the hallway. He had passed too. "I owe you an apology," he said. "For what?" asked. "For underestimating you, for assuming humans were just brutes. I watched what you did today. That wasn't brutality. That was courage. You sacrificed yourself so the team could succeed. That is true warrior spirit." Nodded, "Thank you." "I have a question," Boren said. "Does it ever stop hurting, the damage, the pain?" "No," said. "It always hurts. We just learn to fight through it." Boren was quiet for a moment. "I understand now why they call Eartha. Your planet made you into something we cannot imagine. You don't fight to win. You fight to survive. And you never stop." "That's right," said. "We never stop." That night, instructor called a special meeting. All 43 passing cadets gathered in the briefing room. "You have completed the 3 examinations," said. "You have proven yourselves worthy of service in the Galactic Coalition military. Graduation will be held tomorrow, but tonight I want to say something." He paused and looked at Anne. When humans first applied to this academy, there was significant debate. Many said they were too primitive, too violent, too dangerous. We were wrong. Humans are not dangerous because they are violent. They are dangerous because they refuse to lose. That quality, that stubborn, relentless determination, is exactly what the Coalition needs. He nodded to them. "Thank you for teaching us that lesson." Felt tears in her eyes. She had proven what she came here to prove, not just for herself but for all humans. Tomorrow was graduation. Tomorrow she would officially become a soldier in the Galactic Coalition. But tonight she was just a human from Earth, a survivor from a... And she had shown the galaxy exactly what that meant. Graduation day arrived with clear skis visible through the station's viewing windows. Stood in front of the mirror in her quarters, adjusting her dress uniform. It fit perfectly, tailored for human proportions, dark blue with silver trim. She barely recognized herself. 6 months ago she had arrived at Sanctuary 7 as a nervous cadet. Now she was something else. A graduate, a soldier, someone who had earned their place. "You ready?" asked from the doorway. He was wearing his dress uniform too. "Yeah," said, "I'm ready." They walked together to the grand hall. It was the largest space on the station, with a high ceiling covered in lights that looked like stars. Rows of seats filled the floor, and viewing galleries rose up the walls. The hall was already crowded. Cadets filled the front rows, while instructors, military officers, and ambassadors sat behind them. Saw aliens from dozens of species, all here to witness the graduation ceremony. She found her seat between Boren and Lyra. Both of them nodded to her respectfully. "Big day," Lyra said. Her crystalline body sparkled with nervous energy. "The biggest," agreed. The ceremony began with speeches. Military commanders talked about duty and honor. Academy officials discussed the importance of the coalition. It was all very formal and proper. Then instructor took the stage. "Today, we graduate 43 cadets from the most challenging program in coalition history," he said. His voice carried through the hall. "Of the 200 who began this journey, less than 1/4 completed it. Those who sit before you are the best of the best." He paused, "But I want to talk about something specific, something I learned during this training cycle." Felt her heart beat faster. She knew what was coming. "When humans first applied to this academy, I was opposed," said. "I believed they were too primitive for military service. I believed their strength was meaningless without refinement. I was wrong." He gestured to And. "These two humans have shown us something we needed to learn. They have shown us that survival itself is a skill, that endurance is a weapon, that refusing to quit is the most powerful tactic of all." The hall was completely silent. "Humans come from what we call a," continued, "a planet where everything is trying to kill you. Heavy gravity, dangerous predators, extreme weather. Most species would have died there, but humans survived. They thrived. And in the process they became something we cannot fully understand." He looked directly at. Cadet displayed courage, determination, and combat effectiveness that exceeded all projections. She did not succeed despite being human. She succeeded because she is human. That distinction is important. Felt tears threatening, she forced them back. Stepped down, and the individual recognitions began. Each graduate was called to the stage to receive their rank insignia and official assignment. One by one, cadets walked across the stage. Boren received his insignia with a graceful bow. Lyra's crystalline body chimed as she accepted hers. Kiva and others followed. "Cadet," the announcer called. Stood and walked to the stage. Her legs felt steady. Her hands were calm. She had never felt more confident in her life. Instructor waited on the stage with her insignia, a small silver pin that marked her as an officer in the coalition military. He held it out to her. "Cadet," he said formally, "for exceptional performance in all examinations, you are hereby promoted to the rank of lieutenant. Congratulations." He pinned the insignia to her uniform. Then he did something unexpected. He bowed, a full, formal bow of respect. The hall erupted in applause, not polite applause like before, real, genuine applause. Aliens who had dismissed her 6 months ago were now clapping and cheering. Walked off the stage in a daze. She found her seat and sat down, was called next, and he received the same honor. When all the graduates had received their insignias, the final part of the ceremony began. The exam results were displayed on massive screens throughout the hall. The statistics appeared one by one. Highest individual combat score, Lieutenant Human, 98-100. Longest endurance trial duration, Lieutenant Human, 48 hours. Most damage absorbed in combat simulation, Lieutenant Human. Highest pain tolerance, Lieutenant Human. Most enemy units neutralized, Lieutenant Human. Best tactical improvisation under pressure, Lieutenant Human. The list went on. Humans dominated almost every physical and combat category. Other species held the top spots in technical skills and specialized abilities, but when it came to pure combat effectiveness, humans were unmatched. Heard whispers around her, aliens talking in awed voices about the human cadets, about, about what this meant for the coalition military. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Stood with, drinking something that tasted like sweet fruit juice, watching the crowd. Ambassador approached them. He was a human from Earth, representing humanity in the coalition government. He smiled at both of them. "You did it," he said quietly. "You actually did it." "We just passed the exam," said. "No," said. "You did more than that. For years, the galaxy saw humanity as primitive. Dangerous maybe, but not worth taking seriously. Today, you changed that. You showed them what humans are capable of." He gestured around the room. "Look at them. They're scared and impressed in equal measure. Tomorrow, military recruitment centers across human space are going to be flooded with applications. Other academies will start accepting human cadets. You opened a door that's never going to close." Looked around the room. She saw aliens watching her with new eyes, not dismissive anymore, not underestimating. They saw her as a threat now, as an equal. "What happens next?" asked. "You'll receive your assignments in a few days," said. "The Coalition has big plans for you. First contact fleet, probably. They want humans out there showing the flag." "First contact fleet," repeated. "When we meet new species," explained. "Having a human there sends a message. It says the Coalition has warriors from. It makes others think twice about causing trouble." That night couldn't sleep. She went to the observation deck and stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, home. That had made her what she was. "Can't sleep either." Boren's voice came from behind her. "No," said, "too much to think about." Boren came to stand beside her. "I've been thinking too, about what you said during the endurance trial, about how humans fight to survive damage rather than avoid it." "Yeah. I studied your planet's history after that," Boren said. "I learned about your wars, your diseases, your disasters, and I learned that humans have almost died out several times. Volcanoes, ice ages, plagues, but you survived all of it." He turned to look at her. "My species has never faced extinction. We evolved on a safe world. We've never known what it means to be at the edge of death and choose to keep living anyway. That's what makes you different. That's what makes you dangerous." Nodded slowly. "I never thought about it that way." "The galaxy is about to learn what that means," Boren said. "When the Coalition goes into battle, we'll have humans fighting beside us. Species from safe worlds protected by warriors from death worlds. It changes everything." He was right, could see it now. The Coalition military was changing. The old ideas about civilized warfare were breaking down. Humans brought something new, something raw and primal and unstoppable. Over the next few days, this assignment came through. Lieutenant, assigned to the First Contact Fleet, stationed aboard the exploration vessel Discovery. She would be part of the security team that made first contact with new species. It was perfect. On the day she left Sanctuary 7, stood at the airlock with her bag packed. Was leaving too, assigned to a different ship. They hugged goodbye, both knowing they would probably see each other again. "We did it," said. "Yeah," said, "we really did." Instructor came to see her off. He handed her a data pad. "This is being sent to all Coalition military academies," he said. "A new training manual. It incorporates lessons learned from human combat techniques. You're part of military history now." Took the data pad and scrolled through it. She saw chapters on endurance training, pain tolerance, psychological resilience, all based on human capabilities. "You're going to train more humans?" she asked. "Hundreds," said, "possibly thousands. The Coalition needs what your species can offer, and thanks to you and Lieutenant, we know how to properly train them." He extended his long, thin hand, shook it carefully, aware of how fragile he was compared to her. "Thank you for teaching me," said. "I was an arrogant fool. You showed me there are many ways to be strong." Boarded the transport and found a window seat. As the ship pulled away from Sanctuary 7, she watched the station shrink into the distance. She thought about everything that had happened. The fear, the pain, the exhaustion. The moment when she proved she belonged. The moment when the galaxy stopped underestimating her. She thought about Earth, about the heavy gravity and dangerous animals and harsh sun, about the planet that made humans tough enough to survive anything. The transport jumped to faster-than-light travel, and the stars stretched into lines of light. Smiled. The galaxy had believed she was weak. They had looked at humans and seen primitive brutes, but her first combat exam had shown them the truth. Humans weren't weak. They were survivors. They were warriors. They were the product of a world that tried to kill them every single day, and they had won. And now, the galaxy would have to deal with that. Somewhere ahead, new species waited to be discovered. New challenges waited to be faced. New battles waited to be fought. Was ready for all of it. Because she was human. Because she never ever quit. And the galaxy was just beginning to understand what that meant.